Hello, I'm Anthony Cherokee, and this is episode 5 of the Studio Prep video series titled DIY versus Studio, The Real Trade-Offs. One of the biggest questions artists wrestle with today is this: why should I go into a studio at all? Can't I just do it all myself? And that's a fair question. Home recording has never been more accessible. You can buy a decent interface, a microphone, some plugins, and technically you're in business. So let's take a clear look at the pros and cons and actually weigh what you gain and what you sacrifice with each approach. I promise not to diss either side of the argument, but there are some trade-offs that you should consider. One of the trade-offs is the cost illusion. A lot of people assume DIY is always cheaper, and on the surface, it certainly feels that way. You already own the gear, you're not paying hourly rates, and you can take as long as you want. But the part most people don't calculate is that your time has value also. To put it in monetary terms, say you value your time at $25 an hour. If you spend 40 hours recording and editing and mixing, troubleshooting, watching tutorials, redoing takes, and tweaking plugins, that's $1,000 worth of your time, at least. And more importantly, that's 40 hours you weren't writing new songs or building your audience or practicing for your next show or doing anything to really move your career forward. So DIY isn't free. You're just paying with time and creative energy instead of cash. Now, what DIY does really well, to be fair, there are a lot of situations where it makes a lot of sense. If you're recording, say, keyboards going directly into a digital interface, or if you're working with virtual instruments, programming drums, building layered synth textures, that sort of thing, you can get extremely high quality results at home. Digital instruments translate beautifully in a home environment because there's no room sound or modes to fight, no microphone placement to worry about, and no acoustic treatment is required. Now, for certain genres, a hybrid or even fully in the box workflow is completely valid. But where the studio changes the game is when you start talking about recording real drums or vocals or amplified guitars or acoustic instruments. Because now you're capturing sound that's moving through the air and you're translating it through electric to physical vibrations and vice versa. And that's where the environment really matters. And that's where having really good technology really matters. Now, a beautifully tuned room is going to change the way the drums punch and the way that they breathe. A collection of high-end microphones that you really don't want to spend the money on gives you tonal options you simply don't have with one or two budget mics. And most importantly, an experienced engineer knows how to use those microphones and how to place them to flatter a specific voice or instrument. The microphone choice alone can dramatically change the way a vocal feels. The distance from the mic changes the intimacy. Room reflections change depth. So you can absolutely record vocals at home, but there's a reason why world-class studios invest tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars into rooms and microphones. It's not for decoration. It's because physics matters. And that brings us to the skill ceiling. If you're primarily a songwriter or performer, and you're also trying to be the recording engineer, the editor, the mix engineer, the mastering engineer, you're really dividing your focus. Every one of those disciplines takes years to truly master. Can you become good at all of them? Absolutely. Can you master all of them in any reasonable time frame? Probably not. But if your real strength is writing and performing, spreading yourself across 5 technical roles can slow your growth dramatically in the area that you really want to be known for. When you bring in specialists, you're borrowing thousands of hours of someone else's experience. They've trained their ears. They've made the mistakes for you. They know what competitive records actually sound like. That's not about ego. It's just about efficiency. Emotional bandwidth is an interesting phrase also that sounds a little weird, but when you record yourself, it can be emotionally expensive. You're judging your own performance constantly while you're trying to solve technical problems and second-guess mix decisions. That's a lot of cognitive load. Now, in a studio, you just have to focus on being the artist. Someone else can think about the mic placement and the signal chain while you think about the emotion and the delivery. And that separation can dramatically improve your performance. And then there's objectivity. When you've heard your demo 200 times, You stop hearing it clearly. You fall in love with certain sounds because they're familiar, not necessarily because they're effective. This happens to everybody, believe me. But when you bring in an outside producer or engineer, they aren't emotionally attached to your rough draft. They're listening for impact. Does a chorus lift? Is the arrangement tight? Is anything distracting from the message? That perspective is really difficult to give yourself after so many listens. So what is the right choice? DIY is powerful. Studios are powerful. DIY gives you control and flexibility, but a professional studio gives you the environment, expertise, and focus. The right choice really depends on your goals. If you're experimenting, building skills, or creating electronic-based music, DIY might be perfect. If you're capturing performances that rely heavily on acoustics, tone, and nuance, a great studio with the right engineer can elevate your work in ways that are very difficult to replicate at any home. The key is not assuming one is automatically better. The real key is to understanding the trade-offs with each of them. And once you see that clearly, the decision becomes strategic instead of emotional. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out episode 6 of the Studio Prep video series titled How to Prepare So You Don't Waste Money. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.